It's back.
Oh, yeah, Alex Tejas. I think so, either was here or another jurisdiction. Oh, then he was here.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Oxnard Planning Commission for Thursday, December 7, 2023. This meeting will come to order at 6 p.m. The public may view the meeting from home on the city's website, Spectrum Channel 10, Frontier Channel 35, or on the city's YouTube website. To participate in the meeting, the public may provide comments to the Planning Commission via email at planning@oxnard.org no later than 3 p.m. on the day of the meeting, or through the city's website at oxnard.org/city-meetings, or call the Planning Division office. Additionally, those wishing to speak can dial the phone number listed at the bottom of the screen, follow the instructions to access the meeting, and press star 9 to raise your hand, indicating your intention to speak on the agenda item being discussed. Madam Secretary, can we please have the roll call?
Chair Rejo.
Here.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Present.
Commissioner Nash.
Present.
Commissioner Sealsdorf.
Present.
Commissioners Connolly and Dr. Lopez are absent, and we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We will now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if able to. Put your right hand on your heart and begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. The next agenda item is C, public comments on items not on the agenda. At this time, a person may address the Planning Commission on matters within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission, including information, consent items, and any time not appearing on the agenda. The Planning Commission cannot take any action on items presented during public comments that is not on the agenda, and such item may only be referred to the Commission Secretary. Persons wishing to speak on public hearing items should do so at the time of the public hearing. Madam Secretary, are there any public comments for items not on the agenda?
None.
Thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda. As you see, we have several items. The approval of the minutes for D1, September 21, D2, October 19, D3, November 2, D4, November 16, and D5, adoption of the 2024 Planning Commission meeting calendar. At this time, I will accept if we need to pull any of the items just for individual comments, or we can talk about all of them combined. What's the pleasure of the Commission, or any comments, suggestions, corrections at this time? Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair. Just one very minor correction on the minutes of October 19th, 2023, under G3, the Brow Act should read the Brown Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Any others from the Commission? At this time, I want to, if possible, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yes. Let me see. November 2nd, 2023 minutes on page 2. It had me closing the public, Vice Chair Stewart closed the public comment portion of the public hearing. I wasn't present for that meeting.
Thank you. That will be noted. Both Commissioner Nash and Vice Chair Dr. Stewart with no objection. Is there any other comments, corrections, or questions on D5 in particular? We can think about others for the moment. I'm going to provide my own on D1, September 21. If you could just pull up the minutes. This is just in regards to the motion to the coastal development permit in regards to the, I want to say, Port of Wainimi. The amendment and the main motion were combined in the minutes distributed to us. What actually happened was that there was an amendment, a separate vote on that, and then a vote on the actual amended main motion. So it just clarifies that there were a couple of actions in between and corrects the vote tallies. Can we go to the next page? Those are most of the corrections, blue added, red to remove from what was distributed to us. And then we can always go back, and then we'll go to the last slide, or last page. And then this is just to correct it, what it would be, appear for approval. We can look at that last, and while I note another correction in regards to the vote on November, I apologize, on November 2, I believe. I'm sorry, Madam Secretary, do you happen to, I emailed that to you, do you happen to have the date and the vote correction that I had while I look for it on my own? I see it on November 2, agenda item F2. The vote was listed 511. It should have just been 501. And that's all for me. Are there any other corrections or questions in regards to the consent agenda? Seeing and hearing none, I have a follow-up question on D5. In regards to the January meetings, I was wondering when the election meeting for Planning Commission Chair and Vice Chair will be scheduled. Usually we have it on the second meeting in January, but I just wanted to note the preference or default of what staff usually does from year to year.
Yeah, so Chair Rejo, it would be held on the first meeting that was held for that year. So if we have an item for either the first meeting or the second meeting in January, then we would have it at that. So it could potentially be at the first meeting, or it could be at the second meeting if that is the preference.
Okay, at this time, I'm actually gonna request an unofficial vote from the, I just wanna see what the preference of the Planning Commission that's here right now. The first meeting that's scheduled, it's on the New Year's Day week. If we feel comfortable enough to set the election then, or should we do it at the third Thursday when I feel that there'll be more likely more people? I'm neutral. I just want to put it out there because I don't think we've had it on the first Thursday since I've been here. Vice Chair, Dr. Stewart. Oh, Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair. Question for staff. When do you have any idea when we'll get our 7th commissioner?
Commissioner Nash, at this time, we don't have anybody. So it would have to go through the city council and then be appointed to the city council. So we don't have a date at this time.
Because my concern is that the full commission gets the opportunity to vote for chair and vice chair. I don't know how my fellow commissioners feel about that, my fellow and lady commissioner feel about that. If we could just delay the vote until we get a full panel up here?
Okay, I'm gonna transfer that question to the rest of the commission. I'm gonna transfer that question to the rest of the commission. I have comment on that, looking at Commissioner Silsdorf and Vice Chair Dr. Stewart, if you have any.
I agree with Dr. Nash. Commissioner Nash.
Yeah.
I feel the same.
Okay, thank you. My only worry is that we might not have one in a while. Looking at, I believe for my appointment, there was no one in my position for a while, and there was just 6 members. I recommend to semi-split the difference and set the election meeting for the second January meeting, or if we think the first meeting in February, I think maybe we should choose from those two. Unless there's a strong objection, I'm going to request a recommendation from my fellow planning commissioners at this time. Commissioner Nash.
I would ask our chair if he is willing to continue serving until we get a full panel.
I think at this time I'll be, of course, I think that's usually what has happened. And so I'm absolutely willing. But I think I should be officially neutral at this time, and I'm going to leave it up to my fellow planning commissioners on their preference.
Well, I would make the motion that we wait to take a vote for the chair and vice chair until we get our 7th member.
I'll second it.
It is moved and seconded to wait until we receive a 7th member to the Planning Commission to hold an election for chair and vice chair. I think at this time, I'm sorry, I'll leave it to Commissioner Nash to make comments, and then I'll make some myself. Commissioner Nash?
I think that if I hear our chair correctly, he is willing to continue serving. And I don't think I'm revealing any secrets here, but I would certainly nominate him to be our chair again. So it's kind of a moot point to me whether we have an immediate election or a delayed election. I would prefer a delayed election so that we can say we had a full panel to decide this issue.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. If there are no other comments, I'll just comment that we can always make this motion and change it at a later time. So the preference of the commission is to set, I'm looking at Mr. Pearson.
Chair Reho and Commissioners, so what's before us here is just the adoption of the 2024 calendar. So the discussion regarding when we would have the election, we could have that discussion later, either directly between myself and the chair in terms of setting that date. But we don't need there's no action necessary for setting the
Chair,
appointment.
so should I withdraw my motion?
Yes, there's no.
I withdraw my motion.
What I'll do is actually, I'll lay the motion on the table until we get to the commission business, and then we can pick it up. So it's not technically that it was removed. So I'll pick it up at the commission section, if there's no objection. And I apologize for that tangent. It did come from D5, so there was some intent for some nexus in regards to the consent agenda, but with action, I apologize, thank you, Mr. Pearson, that it's better for the commission business section. Is there any other comment or suggestions in regard to the consent agenda? Seeing and hearing none, a motion is in order.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda with the changes noted.
Sorry.
Second.
Chair Reho,
Yes,
I
Mr.
believe
Pearson.
there was a comment or was that for? Yeah, was that for this item or was that for? It was. Okay.
I apologize. We have never had a public comment for items. I apologize for items not on the agenda, and that has sadly passed, or did I miss it? No, it was just. Okay. Right now, we're currently on the consent agenda. Let's get through that, and then we'll deal with the previous section if we go back. So right now, we have a motion in regards to approving the consent agenda items D1 through D5 with the noted corrections made by myself, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart, and Commissioner Nash. Is there any deliberation on the motion before us? Seeing and hearing none, Madam Secretary, can we have the roll call, please?
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Aye.
Commissioner Seelsdorf,
Yes.
Chair Orejo,
Aye.
motion passes.
Okay. Thank you. Normally, we'd be moving to Section E. I'm going to ask if there's any objection to going back to previous section Looking at the commission right now. Seeing and hearing none, we will go back to hearings or items not on the agenda, Section C. I read it as Nicole Davis. And you have 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, with all respect. It's very simple and minor about the consent agenda. I imagine, and this is with regards to the discussion on the dates and voting, I imagine our service would appreciate having a full panel for the vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Madam Secretary, do we have any latecomers to items not on the agenda?
None.
Thank you very much. We'll move past the consent, which we just did, and go on to ex parte declarations for public hearing items. I'll move across the dais. If you have any, Commissioner Nash.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
None, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Zilstorf.
None, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and none for myself. The next item is Section F, public hearing. Agenda item F1, Camino del Sol wireless monopine. Before I go into the public hearing items, I'm going to ask our city attorney, Ken Roselle, I just want to make sure that the bylaws are now in effect, the ones that were amended 2 years ago and approved by council, the city council last month.
Yes, they are in effect.
Thank you very much. And now for the commission, a couple of things will be changing in regards to how we usually do the presentations. I want to say quite minor, but I just want to note them for the time being in regards to public hearing. In regards to the meeting, we're now at a 10 p.m. time limit. We can extend by 2/3 vote. In regards to the public hearing itself, we used to, in our bylaws, have it that staff makes a presentation, questions, and then the applicant has a presentation and then questions. Usually I ask if there's no objection and we combined it, especially with the passage of Measure M. After that, the applicant is actually allowed 15 minutes subject to a majority vote extension by the commission. When we go into public testimony, it's technically the staff will say their response to public testimony before I close it. Usually it's done right before, right after, but now it's just set in the bylaws in regards to that. I can, at my discretion, add additional time. I can tell you that my default will not to be. Obviously, that will change with circumstances, and I'm likely to ask the commission if we should extend time. If there's any questions just in the public hearing, please raise a point of information. Other than that, I'll have more comments in regards to the revision of the bylaws probably sometime early next year, especially when we have a full commission. Moving on again, agenda item F1, Camino del Sol wireless monopine planning and zoning permit number 23-530-01, special use permit wireless, property located at 2473 Camino del Sol. A request to construct a 60-foot tall wireless communication facility designed to resemble a pine tree with an associated ground equipment enclosure on a 2.41 acre lot in the M1 zone. The request includes the allowance for an increase in height from 55 feet to 60 feet. The project is categorically exempt in accordance with Section 15303 pursuant to provisions of CEQA guidelines, filed by Linda McClung, Network Connects, Glendale, on behalf of Anthem Net and Verizon Wireless, on behalf of property owner Beardsley and Son. City staff is Daniel Hauk, Associate Planner. Does staff want to provide a summary or additional analysis at this time?
Thank you, Chair. I have nothing to add.
Thank you very much. If the applicant is here, and you have a presentation, you have 15 minutes. And you may begin when ready.
Good evening. I'm Linda McClung with Network Connects here on behalf of AthemNet and Verizon. I'm here to answer any questions. I did have discussions with some of the conditions with Daniel, and the only condition that I wanted to bring to the attention of the commission is condition number 53, which states the entire monopine from ground up shall be covered with three-dimensional faux pine tree bark. Our plans currently show that the bark will stop at 5 feet from the bottom branches, sorry if I made that correct. And we found out with these conditions approval that the planning staff wants it to exceed all the way up to the top of the pole. We did bring it to their attention that the branch density would not make that part of the pole visible. So we're willing to abide by whatever the commission decides. But as far as the bark is concerned, whether it stops at 5 feet from the bottom of the branches or it extends all the way up to the pole. That's my only concern or question, but I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Before I get to questions from the commission, I won't charge any time you had anyways. What would be your request of the commission? Can you just repeat it in case we amend as you requested?
My only question would be if we were to allow to do as what our drawings show, which to only have the bark go up 5 feet from the bottom of the lowest part of the branches, when that condition states to make it go all the way up to the top. Right now it's going to stop at 5 feet from the lowest part of the branches and then be painted the rest of the pole to match the same color. So my question would be, can we leave it remaining at 5 feet above the lowest branch, or would the commission prefer the bark to go all the way up to the top of the pole?
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I'm going to go back to the commission. If there are any questions of staff or the applicant. Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you. On the bark issue, the faux bark would continue 5 feet above the lowest branch,
Yes.
not 5 feet below the lowest branch.
What did I say? Did I say that? Did I switch it? Oh, I'm sorry. I meant above. I apologize. Thanks for clarifying.
So the faux bark would extend into the canopy, if you will.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yes, I'm on page 5, and there's 2 tables in there. The top table, I think, may have an error because it's at 257 feet 9 inches, and I'm sure that should either be 25 or 27. Either way, it would comply. Is that on page 5 in the report? It's in the top table.
Vice Chair Stewart, can you repeat the question that you want?
Yes, I see that the proposed is 257 feet 9 inches, and my thought is that can't be correct. It has to be, what, 25 feet or 27 feet? Either way, both of those comply because they're less than 30. Is that correct?
It is actually not a typo. It's the standard is 30 feet, as you can see on the column to the left. It is actually proposed 257 feet into the property.
Okay, all right, then I stand corrected. The second item I have is not really a correction, but it's more of a technical question. I know that the last monopole that we approved, we needed to increase the height. And here again, once again, we're increasing the height. My question is with the change in technology, 5G is coming online and so forth, do they need to be taller? And if that's the case, do we need to go back and modify the city code to reflect the change in technology that they have to be higher now? Don't know what the answer is to that.
So I can speak to the height limit, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. The height limits are based on the height limits that apply to all structures within our code. So that's where the height limitations are actually coming from. The cell towers do have special allowances where they're allowed to go above that up to a certain percentage. So our code does allow for that already, for them to basically to be higher than other structures, but the base height is based on the zone to be consistent with kind of other structures in the area. So in your residential area, you don't want maybe a tower as tall as you would in your industrial zones where you have the ability to go taller. And in terms of the technology, I would default to the applicant to kind of speak to the changes in technology that have occurred.
Okay. So will we, in the future, we will see that they're always needing to be increased? And if that's the case, I guess I just feel like we might be outdated. I'm not sure.
Well, the height, so when you have a monopine, there's the pole. The pole is you know, where the bark is and so forth. The pole on this particular monopine will be at 55 feet. What's going to exceed that is the branches to conceal it. So the pole remains at 55 feet, but the branches will go 5 feet above that to conceal it and make it look more like a monopine. So
Thank
I
you.
hope that explains.
Yes, I understand. And that's all I had.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Any others from the commission? Commissioner Nash.
I'm looking at condition number 53. So I'm sympathetic to your ask, but I would, I guess I would reword it, and I'm asking for your okay on this. The entire, the monopine from the ground to 5 feet into the canopy shall be covered with three-dimensional faux pine tree bark cladding, and the remainder of the trunk shall be painted an appropriate bark color, blah, blah, blah. So would that be acceptable?
Sure, yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. A question to staff, just in regards again to this condition number 53. Is there a reason why staff will not, would request that the Planning Commission not approve this? I mean, just that condition amendment, not the entire thing.
Yes, so Chair Rejo, the condition is one of our standard conditions that we apply. So this has been something that we've applied historically to other monopines and monoeucalyptus and other trees that have come through this process. The condition really is intended just to have that higher level of aesthetics, just because, again, while it may not be as visible as the lower part, it is potentially still visible. So it is really something that, again, we've applied consistently, and it's, again, there really for that aesthetic value.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. That's all the questions from me. Any others from the commission or again? Seeing and hearing none, at this time, we will go into public comment. Madam Secretary, is there any public comment?
There are no public comments.
Thank you very much. The public hearing is now closed. We'll move on to deliberation. Commission. Commissioner Nash.
I'm prepared to make the motion to approve this with the reworded condition number 53. I think that if this was in a more residential area, that I may not be willing to eliminate the faux bark cladding on the entire length of the trunk, but because this is in an industrial area, I think we can reach a compromise.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Nash. Any others from the commission? Seeing and hearing none, I think a motion is now in order. Commissioner Nash.
I move that we approve the recommended action with my comments about rewording condition number 53. And I think staff has that probably. Do I need to repeat it, or did you get it?
Commissioner Nash, I believe we have it. Essentially, we're going to basically have the bark stop 5 feet above the lowest branch, and then above that, it should be painted a bark-like color.
Thank you. That's my motion.
I'll
Thank you,
second it.
Commissioner Nash. And seconded, the motion, okay, it was moved by Commissioner Nash and seconded by Vice Chair Dr. Stewart to find the project exempt from environmental review pursuant to the CEQA guidelines, section 15303, class 3, new construction, and adopt resolution 2023-XX approving planning and zoning permit number 23-530-01, subject to certain findings and conditions, including the amended condition of approval 53, to change it to, in essence, to change it to the entire monopine from ground up until 5 feet above the lowest branch, as already indicated and noted by staff. Is there any other deliberation on the motion before us? Seeing and hearing none, Madam Secretary, can we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Nash,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart,
Yes.
Commissioner Steelsdorf,
Yes.
Chair Orejo.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. We'll move on to agenda item F2, Beverage House Market, Planning and Zoning Permit number 23-510-02, Special Use Permit, Alcohol, properly located at 1955 South Patterson Road. A request to allow for the change from an alcohol beverage control license type 20 to an ABC license type 21, off-sale general, to allow the sales of beer, wine, and distilled spirits for consumption off the premises. The facility proposes to operate Sunday through Thursday from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. to 12 a.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. The project is exempt from environmental review pursuant to section 15301, class 1 of CEQA guidelines, filed by Steve Rawling on behalf of Beverage House Market. City staff is Alex Tejas, assistant planner. Does staff want to provide a summary or additional analysis at this time?
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I would like to emphasize tonight a few points about this project. First, the convenience store will provide a necessity and public convenience by offering small food items and essentials to this neighborhood. This necessity will reduce the vehicle miles travel as the residents will walk to the store instead of driving to a larger grocery store. The vehicle's miles travel reduction will align with our general plan policy CD 10.1, human scale development, as it emphasizes the pedestrian experience over the movement of vehicles. Second, the California Business and Professional Code, section 2395.8.4, established an undue concentration standard. This site has no undue concentration, as it will be the only alcohol seller in the census tract. The census tract allows for 3 off-site licenses. There is no alcohol outlet within 300 feet and 1,000 feet from this property. Third, the crime rate in the area is below the city average at 37. This is 18% of the city average, which is 169. Lastly, the site is currently sits underutilized with substandard lighting conditions. The proposed business will be upgrading the lighting to improve the visibility at night. This upgrade aligns with our general plan policy CD 15.1, quality of life, as it enhances the quality of life in the neighborhood and improves safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tejas. We'll move on to the applicant, if there is any. You have 15 minutes and you can begin when ready. Thank you.
Terrific. Hi, good evening. My name is Steve Rawlings. I am here on behalf of the Beverage House Market ownership group. I do want to say for the record that we do concur with the staff's recommendation and do agree to all of the draft conditions of approval as presented to you this evening. I had a couple of comments that I'd like to make. I do have a slide presentation that articulates a little bit of our operations that I do want to give. But before I start on that, I wanted to let everybody know that when we started this process, the very first person we contacted was Scott Swenson, who is a person that I've worked with on other occasions here in the city of Oxnard. And we had a series of meetings to kind of review the current circumstances, what he would like to see, and what we were proposing to do. And we've worked I mean, we've had a dozen plus conversations and meetings. And I think that Scott is very satisfied with the security plan that we've come forward with. We are improving all of the lighting to bring it up to code. Throughout the center. There's going to be a new trash enclosure. We're going to be doing remodeling on the inside. This was a very, very tired business, and this company is coming in and going to be doing some extensive remodel and make it a very, very clean environment. And we think that we're going to actually improve the safety. And one of the big things that we proposed to Scott right from the start was we did not want to operate 24 hours a day. We have no desire to be open past midnight. We're not looking for any kind of late night business there. And I think that that is a significant enhancement along with the lighting there. We will always have two staff members at this store. And a fun fact is that this is a family-owned business, and nearly every regional manager in this organization is related to Mark and Mike Maida. So they take very good care of these stores. So with that, if I could just run through a couple of slides. Am I ready? Okay, what button do I push? This one? Okay, well, anyway, this is Beverage House Market. I have put in some photos of an existing store that they have. Just real quick, as I touched upon, this is a company that was started by two brothers. They have grown their business to include 70 convenience stores and gas stations throughout the state of California. They are very mindful of the fact that they are a family-owned business. They currently employ 450 employees. So they have a lot of rules and regulations and policies and procedures. They have zero tolerance policies. They train their folks, and I'll go through a little bit of that. Again, their motto is, hey, safety first, because customers, and we're all customers at places like this, they need to feel comfortable about the location that they're going to first. I always ask, hey, is this a place that my wife would feel comfortable with? And that's the way the Maidas look at everything, is that would their wife be comfortable going into this place? And so that's a big deal for them. And they spend a lot of time training their employees to be proactive, going outside, looking at what the activity is. They do, they offer a lot of fresh foods. This is one of their displays. These are very, very popular, high-selling items for them. Again, they take pride in finishing their stores out very, very nicely, upgraded. Oh, I need to go back to that slide. I do want to stop on this slide for just a second. If you look at the very top of the slide there, and you'll see these two black monitors. Those are kind of standard in every one of those stores, and those are right above where the cashiers work. Those monitors are displaying every single camera. This particular store is going to have 24 or 25, 19 inside and 5 or 6 on the outside. So their employees are watching everything that's going on at all times. Again, just give you a demonstration of the product inventory and the finishes that they do. As I mentioned earlier, no interest in staying past midnight, 11 o'clock during the week. They actually inventory only 5% of their store space is dedicated toward the display of alcohol. This gives you a bit of a insight into the actual training. They go through great lengths to talk to them about, hey, exactly what you're supposed to do with customers. Look them in the eye, greet them, so that you always have knowledge, and that they have knowledge that you've identified them and you're watching them, so to speak, and be helpful to them. Again, all the employees do go to, responsible beverage training services, which is a condition of approval. A lot of people don't know what that entails, but that does entail, customer awareness, how to do proper identification checks, what to be looking for to identify people that are potentially intoxicated, because it's not legal to sell an alcoholic beverage to somebody who is showing signs of being intoxicated. So this is an actual fairly comprehensive training program that everybody goes through. We even talk about the details of exactly what happens if there is an incident. And all of our employees are trained upon that. Couple of more highlights on there. We have the large monitors that I talked about that are an excellent deterrent. 25 security cameras. We keep very, very little money in our cash drawers. We're very, very proactive in terms of doing the loitering. We certainly don't have any machines. Any of our distilled spirits are always behind the cashier. No customers can ever get to that. And that was basically it. I wanted to just, preview the fact that the company that's coming in to take over this space is going to put some money into the space, into the shopping center. It's going to reactivate that shopping center. My understanding is that it's been rather quiet since the 7-Eleven left, but this is going to be a major upgrade to what was there before. And not only in terms of appearance, the product offering, but the employees that genuinely care about the business, and as I mentioned earlier, some of the physical improvements that they're going to be doing to the property. I'm here this evening. We have a whole team of people that are available for any questions. We have the Yingus brothers, Joe and Gilbert, who are longtime residents here of Oxnard, who have actually done most of our construction drawings for us and have been working with the city extensively on things like trash enclosures. We have to redo our grease trap and so on and so forth. We have Tom Murphy, who, like I, have been working with the Maida family for a lot of years. He's actually does 100% of all their construction on all of their projects throughout the state of California, a lot of ground up and some tenant improvements. And then we have Michael David, who is a longtime resident here of Oxnard, who is actually the property manager and been the project manager, property manager for a lot of years. And I know that he's very excited to have this user in there. It's making his other tenants very happy. They're excited to hear that there's going to be a great operator there, and it's going to improve the safety, and they're going to get some improvements to that shopping center. As was mentioned before, we did have a community workshop. We sent out 2,700 flyers. That's the most I've ever sent. I've done 1,000 plus of these, and that's the most I've ever sent. And we did have some nice dialogue. The couple of comments that were at least at the workshop, they were concerned about the lighting and the safety, and I think that we've addressed that. We've submitted a full photometric plan that Scott has approved, and we've also had a lot of other people approach us, and they seem to be very excited about it. I know that a gentleman by the name of Randy Latimer, expressed support for that, and Randy's been a longtime resident and commander here at the police department. So with that, I'm available for any questions, and we have the rest of our team here that would be more than happy to answer questions if necessary. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the commission, if you have any questions of either staff or the applicant. Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. A couple of questions. Will you be a tenant or the property owner?
The Maidas will be a tenant, and they're in a long-term lease situation, and they're going to be spending a lot of money there, so I don't think they're going anywhere.
Thank you. Now, I know this isn't necessarily a problem that is specifically the responsibility of this one store, but one of our comment letters, the person expressed concern about, the smell of urine and what have you by, whoever. Do you have a plan in place for going out and pressure washing the surrounding area once in a while, or just to alleviate the concerns of the neighbors who might be impacted by some of the impacts generated by this business?
Absolutely. Part of our requirements of our employees and our managers is, hey, if the store is not, particularly busy, go out and do something. Go out and, we expect our folks to be out there, every other hour into the parking lot, looking at what's going on, picking up trash that's not in the dumpsters. We certainly don't want the smell of urine. We don't want people that aren't customers to be there on the property. And yes, we will hose things down and we will pressure treat them. We mop our floors. We take pride in keeping a very clean place.
I mean, it's just a good business practice because that's how you rapidly turn the community against you. Now, with the 5% floor space devoted to alcohol, I apologize, was this a condition? So you could expand that percentage?
We could, but we're more than happy to accept a condition that limits us to, the 5.1, it's like 5.1% there. We have no plans to expand that display. The other merchandise that we have there is very valuable to us. Like I showed there, and so we have absolutely no problem with the condition of approval that specifies that we can't exceed this 5.1 or whatever the actual
I
number
would
is.
be more than happy to include it that condition if staff could come up with the wording. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yes, I think there are two other locations in the city of Oxnard. Was it Ventura Road and Gonzales is one? Is that the same?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
not sure of the exact addresses.
Right, in that
but yes.
vicinity.
Yes, and
then,
there's also one in Ventura, California.
And then isn't there one also on Rose and First, or is that somebody else? So both of those are your locations too. Just a simple question, are there any problems with either of those two locations that have been in existence for a little while now?
We haven't, in terms of the operations, no. We have been working extensively to bring some of the property up to code in those areas, but in terms of any type of safety concerns, we haven't had any issues at all.
And Scott, may I ask, are there any issues from the police department for either of those two locations?
Concerning the one on Ventura Road, there was actually some discussion that staff was very happy with the way it was run.
Okay.
I don't have any feedback on the one at First and Rose, but I like the business, and I have been in the store on Ventura Road, and I like their business model. I think they need to improve their sight lines inside the store a little bit and kind of bring it up to modern expectations for a convenience store. But from a standpoint of being a good neighbor, they have satisfied our concerns up there.
All right, thank you. And I only asked that because I just want to understand your management model.
Sure.
And how does it work in the stores? And so my question's been answered. Thank you. And I don't think I have any other questions at this time.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Commissioner Zilstorf.
Yes, I was just wondering, because I know you guys are leasing, right?
Yes.
So is this license, does it run with the land, or is it like a person to person?
The license, sorry.
Sorry.
To Commissioner Zilsdorf, the SUP itself runs with the land, so the businesses could change, and they would have the same conditions that are being imposed if this project is approved tonight.
Okay. And I have one more question. Is there a noise restriction in this area, knowing that it's around a residential area? I'm just concerned about delivery hours per se, like what time are the delivery hours as well?
Actually, I'm probably the best one to answer that,
okay.
Commissioner. There's a specific condition that took that into consideration. All deliveries will be during daylight hours.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Is that all, Commissioner
That's
Zilstorf?
it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Zilstorf. I have a couple, I'll start with the applicant first, follow up. You noted that you sent out 2,700 flyers. Was that of your own, or was that already the one mandated because of where it is located by the city?
The city, for the community workshop, required us to send out 2,700 of those flyers at our expense, which we did.
Acknowledged. And as a transition from you to staff, did you, of your own, or does staff require or recommend mailing notices outside the city limits? Because it is adjacent to Port Wainimi.
Thank you, Chair, for the question. So for the process of the community workshop, it was just for the neighborhoods within the city limits. But for the process of this public hearing, the 300 radius public notice was sent out to Port Wainimi also.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Is there an MOU with the city of Port Wainimi? Because I know that there are some cities that just focus, or, you know, it's just legal for their own residents. Or is that a state thing that even if it's outside the city, that flyers have to be mailed outside the jurisdiction?
So with regards to the community workshop, that is city policy to just notice those neighborhoods that the project is within. In this case, they're right on the border of two neighborhoods, so that's why there was the 2,700 notices, so they have to send notices to two neighborhoods. The 300-foot requirement is a standard requirement for all projects, so that 300-foot is done as a radius from the project itself, so it would include any city or any cities or property owners outside of the city boundaries if they were within that 300-foot radius.
And then as a follow-up, can you just clarify, is that a city policy? Or is that mandated by the county or the state? I just want to see who's making sure that happens. And
so the 300-foot radius is I believe it's a requirement under the Brown Act to actually notice everybody within 300 feet of a project, or all property owners within 300 feet of a project.
okay, thank you. But the flyers were only sent to the two neighborhoods of Oxnard, correct?
Yeah, the community workshop process, that is a city local process, so that is not a state requirement.
Okay. For the commission, I might follow up during commission business in regards to that. And now my questions to staff. How many census tracts are within or overlapping with the city? If possible, could a map be displayed to us? Because I read that the permits, or there's an allocation per census tract, and that seems to be, I don't want to say arbitrary, but census tracts come in all shapes and sizes. So do we have a number limit for each census tract, or am I off in regards to the premise of my question?
So census tracts do not overlap, they abut each other. And in this particular case, there is only one alcohol establishment in this census tract. The state is the one that determines whether there's an oversaturation according to state standards by census tract. The city standards are different than the state standard. And so that being the only one in the census tract, it's not oversaturated.
Then my follow-up is, how many census tracts are there that, and I meant overlapping census tracts with the city, not with themselves. What's the average number of people or the average area of each census tract that is within the city of Oxnard? Or how many census tracts are in the city of Oxnard? I can determine the population.
I can't tell you that off the top of my head, and I can't tell you what the population is per census tract, because oftentimes it varies based on the immediate growth of the census tract. This particular census tract has not had any recent growth in the time I've been, affiliated with the city, and that's been over 40 years. So there's not been a lot of change, and that's been the only alcohol outlet as long as I can remember.
And just to follow up, Chair Rio, unfortunately, we don't have the number of census tracts. We did kind of look at the census tracts in that area, and I believe we have an exhibit that we might be able to pull up to kind of show just the tracts that are in this vicinity. I don't know if we can get Manny to pull that up. Next, or if you scroll down on that one, yep, there you go. So these red lines kind of outline the census tracts, at least in this immediate vicinity. The kind of green dot at the lower corner is, I believe, this facility here, just above Hemlock there. So this kind of shows the alcohol outlets in this vicinity, and as Scott was mentioning, this is the only one within that census tract, which is that red square there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Swenson. Thank you, Mr. Pearson. I think my comments are better left for deliberation, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you for your answers to my question. And then my last one is, there was a process in regards to suspending licenses. How often do we suspend licenses, and what has been the history of regaining them, if any?
I think historically, from my experience, if you're talking about the alcohol special use permits, which have been in effect since 2001, when the city council passed that resolution, I do not think any of them have been suspended or revoked. The city attorney's office may be able to speak better to that. In the case of ABC licenses, it's an administrative process, and I don't know of any that have occurred in the last 15 or 20 years. I was involved in several of those revocations during the 80s and 90s. And it's a long but administrative process that goes through ABC. The police department works with ABC on doing investigations and supplying information. And when there's sufficient information, usually the first effort is to get them in line through a suspension. And if they continue the same kind of violations, they'll get revocation through the hearing process.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. There's all the questions I have for the moment. Vice Chair, Dr. Stewart.
Yes, and I don't know, I can't find it, and I may have imagined it, but is there going to be any security on the premises, walking around or anything for the area, or not?
No, but we do, expect our managers to be actively outside, walking around the premises on a regular basis. We have a no loitering policy. Our managers are, when they do see people that have been staying there for a little while, they ask them to leave the property and say, hey, I'll be back in 5 minutes. And if you haven't left, we will be calling the police department, and we do. And usually people get the message pretty loud and clear that, hey, this isn't a place to be hanging out. So we actively, we actively manage our property. And as I mentioned, we have those big monitors, and all those monitors are every single camera. So our employees are seeing that all the time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Is there any other questions from the commission? Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair. This is a question for staff, and I don't expect you to have the answer, but maybe this is something you could give us in the future. But I had the opportunity to drive around the historic district yesterday and the adjacent areas, and I noticed a lot of neighborhood markets. So my question would be, how many neighborhood markets exist in Oxnard that sell alcohol? And that might be something just to give the commission, as kind of a point of reference that, it's not that unusual to have a neighborhood market that sells alcohol.
Commissioner Nash, so we will have to follow up with you on that information, but yes, we can definitely provide that information to the commission.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Seeing no other questions from the commission, we will move on to public comment. I'll start with the public comment that was already previously submitted. Owen O'Neill. If you are here in person or online, please let us know or indicate so by pressing star 9. Okay. If you hear us, Mr. O'Neill, we'll leave, you can come at the end. Madam Secretary, are there any public comments, either here or online?
No. No other comments.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Well, seeing, one more person. Seeing that Owen O'Neill is not indicating themselves, I will now close the public hearing, and we will now move on to deliberation. Commission. Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm happy to support this, but I just want to point out a few facts to the public, if anybody's listening. We have conditions of approval 16 through 28 regulating alcohol. We have conditions 30 through 43 regulating security. We have conditions 44 through 50 regulating lighting.
Recording in progress.
That wasn't me. Can I continue? Thank you. And we have conditions 51 through 61 regulating signage, loitering, and delivery times. So, and plus I would like to add another condition limiting the floor space of alcohol sales to, I'm happy to bump it up to 66%, just to round it up, because I don't want to get into fractions of percentages. So my point being that we have a lot of conditions to make this a very good neighbor, a very good store for its neighborhood. So having said that, I'd like to hear what my other commissioners had to say, and then we'll make a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Members of the other members of the commission? Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yes, we've come a long way. I remember in the 80s and 90s, for me, this was kind of like the Wild Wild West as far as alcohol sales go. I think we were number 3 in the state of California for DUIs, and we have gotten way better. Things have been much improved, and looking at the conditions that have been developed, those ensure that everybody complies and everybody stays on track. And so I'm very happy to support this. I think that this conforms. The crime rate for the actual location is lower than most of the city in several different categories. And so looking at their management model, it looks like it will be the same. And so again, I can support this.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Commissioner Zilsdorf.
Yes, I would support this business as well. I believe that this business would be good for the neighborhood, you know, as long as the lighting and trash enclosures, you know, would be done. So I support this business. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Zilsdorf. I'd like to comment also that I think my main concern was with the lighting and trash, but as has been said by, I think, both the applicant, staff, and then obviously in the text, that it has been addressed in multiple ways and to a sufficient level that I believe that it would not be detrimental, but would actually be beneficial for the neighborhood, especially since it's the only one of its type within that census tract or within that area just in general. Are there any other further deliberation at this time? Okay. Seeing none, I am looking for a motion. Commissioner Nash.
Thank you. Has staff come up with a condition regarding the percentage of floor sale?
Yes, so as a draft condition, Commissioner Nash, we have the alcohol display area shall be limited to no greater than 6% of the gross floor area of the tenant space, which is 2,580 square feet.
Thank you. My motion is to approve the recommended action with the addition of the condition that we just heard from staff.
It's been moved by Commissioner Nash to find the project to be category exempt from environmental review pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15301, existing facilities, and adopt Resolution 2023-XX approving planning and zoning permit number 23-510-02, special use permit alcohol subject to certain findings and condition, in addition to the added condition of approval regarding the 6% max sales of alcohol as stated by Mr. Pearson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Zielsdorf. Is there any further deliberation on the motion as amended before us? Seeing and hearing none, Madam Secretary, can we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Nash,
Aye, and good luck.
Commissioner Seelsdorf,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart,
Yes.
Chair Orejo.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you and congratulations. Thank you. We'll move on to, We'll move on to agenda item F3, Starbucks at Lemon Grove Plaza, planning and zoning permit number 21-500-09, special use permit, property located at 2001 through 2009 North Oxnard Boulevard. A request to construct a 2353 square foot coffee cafe with drive-through within an existing commercial shopping center parking lot. The proposed building would increase the total building square footage on the property from 99,903 to approximately 102,900 and would reduce the parking from 475 parking spaces to 462. The project is exempt from environmental review pursuant to sections 15303C, class 3, new construction or conversion of small structures, and 15332, class 32, infill development projects. The project was filed by Scott Boydston on behalf of property owner James Aston, city staff, Mr. Joe Pearson, planning manager, and Susan Hernandez, contract planner. Does staff want to provide a summary or additional analysis at this time?
Chair Rejo and Commissioners, staff does not have any additional comments at this time, but is available for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pearson. If the applicant is available, you have 15 minutes when you begin.
Thank you and good evening. Scott Boydston here from Rasmussen and Associates Architects on behalf of Starbucks and also the owner of the center. We have our team members on Zoom. We have the Starbucks management team, the Starbucks architect, and the traffic engineer if questions come up. I do have a small or a short sort of presentation. Essentially, I think everybody kind of knows where Lemon Grove Shopping Center is, the plaza. It's been an active center. It's been full. It's been well managed. It has a few pads on it now. There's a Burger King on the corner and an AutoZone on one side of the main entry drive. This is a photograph of the center as it appears now. You can see that even on a good day, the area that the Starbucks is going into is not heavily parked. So we are losing some spaces, but we did do a traffic or a parking study which showed that for the shared parking use, 444 number of parking spaces would be required, and we're at 462, along with 18 queuing spaces over and above that. This is just a slide of showing sort of the general area. There is a large landscape buffer along Oxnard Boulevard. Currently, it is not per code in its depth for a scenic highway. We will be proposing to add 6 more feet of landscaping to bring that up to code to the 30 feet. and also landscaping from the main drive aisle to the other drive aisle in front of the Starbucks. This is the area where Starbucks is going. It's going to flank the main driveway the same way AutoZone does, which allows us to get views back into the main part of the center. That was very important to some of the major tenants in the back, that this run this direction, east-west rather than north-south, because north-south would block the views of the center in the back. You can see one of the major nuances of this is that on the other side, where the AutoZone is, there is a north-south driveway aisle. Currently on the south side, that aisle doesn't exist. So we are actually improving the how vehicles can move through the site, across the site. And I think we work with traffic, and it essentially unburdens in front of the main tenant on the east side, all the traffic having to be on that main drive. We're also, one of the deficiencies of the shopping center is that it's not connected together with a pedestrian pathway to sidewalks. So as part of this project, we will be also doing that. The green line is going to be a dedicated pathway that also gets you to a bus stop, which is up on the street to the west. This is how the inbound traffic would come into the center. There's a frontage road. We would be using existing driveways. And again, that north-south access way now going all the way through in the middle of the center will make circulation on site much easier. This is how one would enter and exit or exit the site, again through existing driveways. And you can see it doesn't really, the exiting from Starbucks does not impede circulation to other parts of the center. We also, as part of this, and it's in your packet, there's a traffic demand management plan. We've done a number of Starbucks around, and these are always included, which show where signage and talk about how to mitigate queuing at peak hours, things like handheld ordering, and having people out in the parking lot for the queues. Also adding more staff at those peak times so that the product can get out quicker. We also have, basic stop signs and things like that. So when you're coming out of the queue, you're not just being dumped out into a drive lane. This is the site plan in detail. One of the things with the drive aisle running along that landscape, we have a 42-inch high wall that's landscaped so that headlights will not impede traffic on the frontage road or Oxnard Boulevard. We also have a trellis on the building that actually bridges over the drive aisle so that the building presence comes out to the street. And that was one of the things we work with staff on, as long as in addition to patios and visibility into the store, being very important from Oxnard Boulevard. You can start to see the tables and the layout. The building architecture, and the architect is here, but very much the intent is for it to blend into the center. So we're using the same kind of stone on the facade. We're using the same kind of Spanish tile, sloped roofs, wood trellis. The wood trellis, I believe, is also has the ability to have photovoltaics on it so that it can give back and run lights and electric in the building. On the drive aisle, we introduced green screens and decorative lighting so that every side of the building is a design facade. We also introduced tower elements where the signage could go that breaks up the massing, and even on this small building. Here's where you can see the trellis that actually goes out over the drive aisle and then wraps around the building to create seating around the front and also on the side facing the south. This is the amount. So this is an old center. The landscape's tired. Excuse me. It's not up to water standards. And so you can see all around this area is being redeveloped with new landscaping. And again, we're increasing the 30 feet to 230 feet, about 6 feet more of landscape depth from Oxnard. Let me go. I don't know actually, oops, how to go back, but this is just for your, in case you had questions, the traffic demand management plan and shared parking. Studies were done. ATE, who is well known as a traffic engineer in town, has a number of studies done on existing facilities in Oxnard, but also around Southern California as far as queuing. The survey states that typically 12 to 14 queuing spaces are adequate. We are actually doing 18. So it is our intent not to spill out even into the middle of the center and alleviate that problem. And that's the extent of my presentation. I'm here for questions, and I have a team on Zoom that can probably answer more questions than I can.
Thank you, Mr. Boyson. And really quick, can you introduce again the members of your team?
So I have Daryl Nelson, who's with ATE. I have the management for Starbucks, Ben and Nicole. I have the architect for Starbucks, Elizabeth Valero. I believe that's all the people we have.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Commission, at this time, we can ask questions of the applicant and or staff. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart, followed by Commissioner Nash.
Yes. I saw in figure number 3 in your presentation that was put up, talking about the inbound access to the location. And my only concern there is there's a Burger King, and sometimes the Burger King's queuing is not as good as what it seems like Starbucks has, so it backs up and it's going to block some of your flow. Is there any thought of that or anything out of that, or any consideration or anything related to that?
Well, I think we have to, when this goes in, we are talking with Burger King. I know the owner of the center is looking at other tenants for that space. And as he's doing that, he's looking at the queuing for Burger King and understands that is a concern. What we're trying to do tonight is address Starbucks, acknowledging that their Burger King is not working as well as it should be. Okay. And if you look at the diagram, there are lots of different ways out of this shopping center.
Right, just looking at the path in,
Yeah.
and just realizing, I'll just make a quick comment, Starbucks doesn't exist in a silo, so they have to work with their neighbors.
That's true.
And so, you know, when I bring up the comment, because we've had some other projects that have to relate with other folks, that we have to figure things out. Now, I do like your queuing for this, because I cut my teeth on queuing for drive-throughs, period, on your Starbucks location at Rose and Gonzales, where the Walmart is. And that queuing is horrible.
Right.
In other words, it backs up into the first lane of parking, and it's still today, it's still like that. And so I learned about queuing. Next Starbucks I did was at Channel Islands and Ventura Road, and it seems like they got it down, and this seems like this is even better. So I do appreciate the queuing that you have set up. And then when we talk about parking, I did read the parking report, and it seems to be good. I guess I just have some concern that the Smart and Final during the busy times and busy seasons, you know, is that adequate parking or not? You know, the parking survey says, yeah, it is, so I have to go with that. And then the only other thing with traffic is that there's another bad intersection, which seems like it will not come into play here, but I'm not really sure. And that's at Gonzales, just past Oxnard Boulevard, west of Oxnard Boulevard, passing the KFC and the 7-Eleven and the Bank of America. As you go in there, sometimes that traffic is out in the boulevard when the light changes. And so I'm just thinking about impacts. But I guess if you go Lemon Grove, you pass that, and if they're coming down, they may hit some of that coming down Oxnard Boulevard South. So I guess we'll see. But overall, I think it's a good project. Really don't have any major concerns, just those items I pointed out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Any others from the commission? Commissioner Nash?
Thank you, Chair. I've got to ask this. Is there any chance of getting a art glass mural like the Victoria Starbucks has? You don't have to answer.
Okay.
I know what the answer is. I would love to.
We had a very good client for that one.
Right,
That donated
Yeah.
and did public art on all his buildings. So
Yeah,
very special guy.
If you haven't seen that, it's in the drive-through. You have to go to the drive-through lane.
Yeah.
But it's spectacular. This is a question for staff, and I'm very familiar with this shopping center. And the one issue that I have are people going, it would be eastbound on Citrus Grove, making a left turn onto northbound Oxnard Boulevard. And it seems to me that the only solution for that, because when you're merging, you have traffic going at road speed, which can be 50 miles or more per hour, coming up on your blind side. So to me, the only solution to that is to make that a fully signalized intersection. Is there any plans does the city have any plans on doing that eventually?
Commissioner Nash, unfortunately, I'm not aware of any plans. Again, I can look into that and check with our Public Works Department. There was a traffic study prepared for this, and our traffic team did look at this one. So it wouldn't be something that we would make part of this project, but I can look into it and get back to you on if the city does have any plans for that in the future.
And I'm always reluctant to take on the traffic study of a $1 billion corporation can give us, but that to me that is a serious issue. Although I would support this project, but I think that is a real potential issue. The more vehicles you get into that, because to me people aren't going back into the community; they're going to get onto Oxnard Boulevard and going to the freeway. So to me, that's a huge issue and maybe one that will have to be addressed in the future. I just wanted to raise it here tonight. So thank you, Chair, and thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Seeing no other questions from the commission, we will now move on to public comment. We'll start with the public comment that was previously already submitted. Carla Alejandra, Are you here online or in person? I'm getting an indication from the Madam Secretary that you are not here. If you are, please let us know before we close the public hearing. Or Madam Secretary, do we have any other public commenters either here in person or online?
We have Diana listed that she might speak. Is this something that you would
Okay.
know?
Is Diana available here or online? Okay. Thank you. Seeing no public comments.
Sorry, Chair Ray, it looks like somebody has their hand raised.
Okay. Oh. Carla Alejandra, when you're able to speak, we can confirm, and you have 3 minutes at that time. At this time.
Hello?
Yes, we do hear you. You have 3 minutes. Please begin.
Yes, hi, good evening, Commissioners. This is actually Elizabeth Valerio, the
Hi, is it my turn
Yes,
or is someone
hello.
else speaking? Sorry.
This is, oh, I'm sorry. I was unmuted. This is Elizabeth.
I'm gonna look to the Madam Secretary. Just let me know who you have unmuted and we'll go with that person. Okay.
It's Carla.
Okay.
I'm unmuted.
Okay, Carla Alejandra, you have 3 minutes. Please begin.
Okay, thank you. Just really quick before I speak on the Starbucks item, I just kind of wanted to raise a little bit of concern over the speaker or the beverage house issue. It kind of sounded like a little problematic, the whole making their employees walk around and like kind of just honestly police people around the premises. First of all, honestly, it sounds like it's just going to target homeless people, which is problematic. And secondly, I do hope that those employees are getting a good amount of money as a salary because now they're acting basically as security guards as well. I just wanted to kind of comment that. But moving on to the Starbucks issue, let me just cut to the chase, right? Oxnard doesn't need another Starbucks. Oxnard does not need another Starbucks, okay? But more than that, I do see that this city, especially the city council and I guess other like commissions, kind of have like this lack of understanding of how different social issues affect each other around Oxnard. Take, for example, yesterday, there was a discussion about food vendors, right? At the city council meeting. The city council and the mayor would like to say that they are for permitted vendors, right? But like issues like this and actions like these kind of like don't show that. Because you see a lot of the food vendors, their ultimate goal isn't to actually just stay vending food in the street or even in a food truck. A lot of their goal is to save up enough money to actually purchase property and sell like from a restaurant or like a local cafe or something like that. And how can they do that if this city just keeps kind of like showing preference to these corporations like Starbucks, like these large chain corporations? We don't need another Starbucks. If this city really cares about small business or food vendors who are permitted, it doesn't show. It just this isn't, and it's more concerning to me that a lot of y'all don't recognize, like I said, how these different social issues affect each other and how you're affecting different sectors of the community, a lot of them marginalized sectors of the community. But yeah, that was basically it.
Thank you for your comments, Carla Alejandra. The next speaker, I'm gonna look to the Commission Secretary, because I forgot the name.
We had a Diana and the other person was not registered, so I'm not sure.
What's the ending number, so I can?
Yes, hello.
Yes, we do hear you. You have 3 minutes, and if you could just briefly state your name.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry. I'm actually, this is Elizabeth Valerio, the architect of record for Starbucks, and I'm actually dialing in through the public speaker number. I didn't have access directly to the dial-in for applicant presentation. I just wanted to say thank you very much for listening to our presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions. One item that I did want to clarify from one of the commissioners that discussed the shared parking and the time of Burger King, the activity of Burger King versus Starbucks and the timing of both the drive-through. Starbucks' main, the peak of their activity is really early morning. Sometime between 6 and 9 would be Starbucks' peak time. So based on the current center's tenancy, I see that a lot of the tenants are active after 10. And Burger King will most likely, based on my past studies, have shown activity during lunchtime. Maybe some during breakfast, but primarily during lunchtime. So the activities in drive-thru for both Starbucks and Burger King, as well as the other tenants, should not coincide. I think Starbucks will be active when the center is pretty quiet, and then they will have a moderate circulation and customers during the rest of the day when the center is open and active. So it balances itself out. It really shouldn't cause, any backup or any congestion from the shared parking as well as the drive-through use. And I want to emphasize that. And then as well as when Scott Boyson mentioned traffic demand management plan, also indicate ideas or procedures of how to take care of spillovers in case there are. But with 18Q, I don't believe it will be a spillover. So want to address that specifically. And then if there are any other specific questions, I think Scott Boyson went through everything, so I'm happy to answer those questions.
Right. Thank you. I'm gonna request that you stay online because it wasn't technically public comment. It was just a mistake that I apologize that you had to call in through public comment. I'm gonna ask the commission if they had any questions for her specifically. And then, because I don't know if you can call in through the other line that needs to be done. So I'm gonna give that to the commission if they want to ask any specific questions of Miss Elizabeth. I didn't get your last name. Commission.
Valerio, yes.
Valerio, thank you. Seeing and hearing no questions, we can close the call at least for you. Thank you very much. Sorry I had to call through public comment. Appreciate your time. And I'm looking to Commission Secretary that we do have one more caller. You are soon to be unmuted. If you could just state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes when you begin, please. We do not hear you. If you might be muted, press *6.
All right.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you. You can begin. And please state your name. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Arroyo. This is Diana Velzi, and I am resident of Orchard Park. I do have mixed feelings about the Starbucks coming in. However, I'm ambivalent at this point. But I do have some real big concerns, especially about the queuing study. I don't know about you, but we have several problems with queuing issues throughout Ventura County, especially in the city of Oxnard. The Chick-fil-A's at Camarillo and Ventura, Starbucks at Esplanade and Rose, the In-N-Out Burger in Camarillo and the Home Depot, just to name a few. So I'm not sure where, I guess one speaker indicated that ATE did the queuing study. And I would certainly like to know what stores they visited and hours that they visited, because even in non-busy hours, and a lot of the Starbucks around here are busy at all hours of the day and all hours of the night. And there are quiet times, true, but usually there's more than 9 to 14 in a queue during non-busy hours. So I do have a big concern about that. Plus, we have a lot of high-density housing going in right now. And ever since Wagon Wheel and River Park came in, especially since Lowe's came in, we are picking up on, residents coming from all over Oxnard to visit these sites now. And so maybe the number of decreased parking is de minimis at this point. It could be a concern at a later date. Plus, Starbucks is such a popular company that they don't always need a front row seat. There are 3 different areas of this particular lot that they could actually move the building into. Like there's been a building that's been abandoned for 3 years. I think it's a Meineke or a brake company or whatever. But it's been standing empty for several years now. They could have had a whole long line of areas where they don't have to actually take up any of Smart and Final's parking spaces. Plus, there's the 2 back corners. I'm not saying that I know the measurements of everything and whether any of that would have worked, but it appears that it could have. I am glad to see that they added the facade of the brick facade and the roofing, because I did recommend that previously. And again, I am ambivalent, but I do have concern because we are approving a lot of these Starbucks. We've got another one going in the old Wendy's, and one that's going in by the Panda over here at River Park. We already have three existing by River Park and Wagon Wheel. So we are approving a lot of Starbucks. But that said, I'm ambivalent, and maybe there's some things that could be made changes to make everybody happy. I don't know. So, but my biggest concern is the high density that is coming into this area, especially right off of Vineyard, which will increase the usage of these 2 shopping centers in Orchard Park. And that's all I have. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Ms. Belzy. Appreciate that. Do we have any other public comments here or in person?
We do not.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Are there any comments from staff or the applicant in regards to the public comments? I'll start with the applicant. I'll end with city staff. Nothing from the applicant, city staff?
We have an applicant with a raised hand, Daryl Nelson.
Okay, we'll let that under, yeah. And we are now unmuting. And
Can you hear me, commissioners?
Yes, we do hear you. No time limit. You can respond to any of the public comments at this time. Thanks.
Yeah, I'd just like to respond to the questions about the Q study and locations. We studied several Starbucks in Oxnard and Ventura, Thousand Oaks, in addition to going as far north as Palo Alto and as far south as Chula Vista. And the data consistently comes back saying 14 spaces is pretty much the max queue at these locations. And in this case, the project is providing spaces for 18. And those 18 spaces are being maintained on site. What we try not to have is queuing spilling into the street, affecting the traffic way. That's what we don't want to design for. And things that should be pointed out is there are already 2 Starbucks in close proximity to the project. So this store will give some relief to those 2 other stores that have had some observed queuing issues. So all in all, this project should not be a problem given its site and its location.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Appreciate that. If I don't see anything other from any of the applicants that had to call in or in person, I will now go to staff for any remarks.
Chair Rejo and Commissioners, just one comment. As with other drive-through projects that have come before the commission, there are conditions 42, 43, and 42 and 43, which talk about the transportation demand management plan, which is intended to ensure that these issues don't happen in terms of the backing up and queuing issues that could result from a drive-through facility. This does give the city the opportunity to come in and work with the applicant or the Starbucks team to address any of those issues. So again, just to point out that those conditions are included on this project as well.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. I'll declare the public hearing to be closed, and we'll move on to deliberation. Commission. I'll start with a couple comments. Just, the Starbucks has come before this commission a minimum of 3 times, at least since I've been appointed to the Planning Commission. And I think our biggest concern is usually in regards to queuing and them coming out of the actual property. I think a little bit of it is sour grapes, at least for me personally, but I still believe that the Planning Commission was correct when we denied the permit in regards to the Starbucks that's replacing the Wendy's on Vineyard. That was overruled or overturned by the City Council, and I think that queuing length was even less than here. The parking cars will go directly into a street, and 2 or 3 more cars goes into a, as it was classified, a state highway. And so in regards to this, I believe they've covered, it's almost like they were looking at the previous public hearings, that they've covered, at least for me, all the bases in regards to what to deny. The queuing length is bigger than the average, at least I gotta say. It possibly is the biggest in the city of Oxnard. If there were too many cars, which I do share the concerns of Ms. Wellesley that I think we gotta look at those numbers a little bit more skeptically. As someone who frequents Starbucks at least once a week, they seem a little bit optimistic with the numbers. Obviously, that's more anecdotal for me. But if the queuing length went above what was stated or the capacity, at least at worst case, it would hinder the internal parking circulation, which is better than hindering, in my opinion, the streets, especially with it being so close to the frontage and then the main Oxnard Boulevard street. So, I mean, I like, in regards to the outside of the building, I didn't exactly understand all of that, but it seems like an upgrade to the average of the Starbucks currently located here. I think Commissioner Nash has stated previously about, he's at least one of the more proponents about making sure that the facade of the building is a little bit more than just normal, and so I believe you covered that basis. And so at least with the recommended action before the commission, I think that, and I urge the commission to approve this. Are there any other deliberation from the commission? Seeing and hearing none, a motion is now in order. I'll move the recommended action. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Nash. Is there any deliberation on the motion before us? It has been moved and it has been moved by myself and seconded by Commissioner Nash to find the project to be categorically exempt from environmental review pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15303C, Class 3 new construction or conversion of small structures, and 15332, and adopt Resolution 2023-XX approving planning and zoning permit number 21-500-09, special use permit subject to certain findings and condition. Seeing and hearing no deliberation. Madam Secretary, can we have the roll call, please?
Chair Rejo,
Aye.
Commissioner Nash,
Aye.
Commissioner Seal Stewart,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you and congratulations. We will now move on to Section J, study session reports. With none listed, we'll move on to the Planning Commission business. I'm gonna bring back up the motion, I believe was made by Commissioner Nass and seconded by Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. It looks like I'm correct in that motion and seconded. In regards to postponing the election to a date when there would be 7 members of the Planning Commission appointed. Re-looking at the bylaws, I am going, because it is in our bylaws, usually I would say that we could suspend the bylaws by 2/3 motion if it's in the form of a parliamentary rule, but I don't believe this is. And so what I'll still do is that I'm going to ask if there's any objection to adding an order to the motion that was laid on the table, that we take that up at whenever the election is held. And so the election will be held, the bylaws say in Rule 8, Section A, Rule 2, that the elections will be held during the first regular meeting of the commission. And so I'm going to request staff still schedule that. I will work with the secretary in regards to at least parliamentary procedure of how to put the motion that was laid on the table. We're going to add an order to that so that we take up that motion after the introduction of an election, if and when it's going to be held. I'm going to look to the commission with any information, points of information, requests for information, or if you have any objections to that. Seeing and hearing none, I will at least put into the minutes that I will work with the commission secretary in the next, I'll give myself a deadline because I didn't do that one other time, by next week in regards to making sure that's put in there so that it's viewable to whenever the first regularly scheduled meeting is held next year. I will look to Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yes, not to object, I just want to make a comment. My first time on the Planning Commission, my term was over December 31st, I think it was 2018. I stayed here until the middle of May 2019, only because the process moved slowly to replace me up on the dais. So my thoughts are not to, I think we should move forward, not to get, held back because, we could go over half a year before we have an opportunity if we waited for a full 7. That's my only comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. I more or less agree with that. I think when hopefully we'll have at least a couple more, maybe even the full commission by the first regularly scheduled meeting in the year, whether that happens in January or February, that we can have a fuller discussion on that. The motion will be put before us. We can have further discussion in regards to that, and we can set a date. We can always change that, but I believe that it is in the rules that we should at least be scheduled to hold this. Again, I put that order onto the motion so that it has to be put to us after the introduction of the meeting. Moving past that now, if there's no other comments or questions in regards to that, I'm going to look to the rest of the commission in regards to just any planning commission business. Okay. Commissioner Nash?
I just want to wish Councilmember Brian McDonald a speedy recovery.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash.
A Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. And for myself, because it appears that it's going to be the last meeting of the year, I'm going to wish everyone well. I mean, a blanket thank you to staff as always. I'm not as effusive, at least in public, as my other fellow planning commission members in regards to all the work that you do. As someone who worked on the other side, I really appreciate it, especially with all the questions that I asked beforehand in between the meetings. So I personally appreciate it, and I professionally appreciate it. And before I forget, before we leave, you have to get at least one cookie from what I brought. So you can't leave unless you get at least one cookie. Thank you. If there's no other comments from the commission, we'll move on to the community development staff. Mr. Pearson.
So Chair Reho and commissioners, as you mentioned, this will be the last meeting. Our next meeting will be canceled. So the next regularly scheduled meeting with the approval of the calendar will be the January 4th meeting, I believe. So that will be in the new year. And with that, again, wish you all happy holidays. And that's, almost missed the most important thing. Want to introduce our new staff person. So Kristen Guzman is joining us. She is taking Roy's prior position. For reference, Roy is still with the city. Roy was promoted to assistant planner. So he will someday be coming and presenting a project to you guys. But Kristen's been joining our team and has been doing a great job since she's come on board. So she will be the backup for Miriam. So she's here just to see how everything goes and get used to everything. So I don't know if she has anything she wants to add, but if not, then I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson, and Ms. Guzman. I hope we didn't scare you off too much, so I appreciate you having you on board. We'll now move on to adjournment. If there's no further business, the meeting will be adjourned if there's no objection. Seeing and hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all and good night.